I love Jesse Ventura. I grew up on Jesse Ventura. I mean, as a wrestler, and then as he transitioned over to being a color commentator, who is one of the best color commentators. So I just want to put a disclaimer out that I am not at all like crapping on Jesse Ventura. But there is a however. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the bad, and then I'm going to end on a good note for Jesse because it wasn't all bad for Jesse. But Jesse either has a memory issue or something because Michael Kogo's the WWE resident historian, the professor of all things wrestling history for WWE, had just made a comment that this was the third cage match in the history of Saturday Night's Main Event. One was with Paul Orndorff back in the 80s with Hulk Hogan, which was a famous one, and then they also, Hogan and Boss Man had a cage match around 1990. Not not 45 seconds later, Jesse Ventura comes out with this gem. They would have never shown this match on TV 35 years ago.
I ain't
So the
got time
match,
to bleed.
yeah. So the match goes on, and he's calling it good. And what I like about Jesse, so I'll get some good in now. Whenever like Priest would have Drew down and he wouldn't go for a pin,
Yeah.
Jesse would call him out on it. Like, you need to get on him. You got to stay on him. Jesse was calling like, hey, these two guys don't want to leave the cage. I don't know if he knew what the finish was ahead of time. And then Jesse, of course, with his relentless assault on the referees, and he brings out a thing I really like, and he talks about the count. Every ref has a different cadence, but as long as they're steady and consistent. I love that Jesse brings that out. I wish Michael and Pat and Joe and Wade would kind of be a little more honest with like critiquing of the refs. Jesse's always been great at that. So anyway, WWF back in the 80s always had the rule, 70s and 80s, that the only way to win a cage match was to escape either over the top or through the door. And sometimes they would add a stipulation that you could only go out through the door. I think it was Jimmy Snooker. They could only go out through the door. They couldn't go over the top. So Jesse was around the 80s. So he's called cage matches, which the only way, they never used to have a ref in the ring. It always stood outside and held the door. It was the doorkeeper. So then Jesse gets on Saturday Night Live after, Priest wins by walking out the cage and said, you can't win a cage match by walking out the door. I'm like sitting there like, damn it, Jesse. I've listened to you call multiple cage matches. One time Jesse called a cage match. Both guys got in the cage. They rang the bell, and Jesse was like, well, if it was me, I would just ask for the door and go right out the door. Like, I ain't staying around.